Okay, for this lesson, our objective is to review place value concepts and addition of whole numbers and decimals. Alright, so when we look at numbers, we can break them up into specific place values. So let's look at the number 432. If we looked at this number from a point of view of each place value, it would be considered 400 plus 30 plus 2. Now this has a specific name, and in math we call it expanded notation. And I don't. So we read that number 400 or 400s plus 30 or 3 tens plus 2 ones. So we're looking at each of these numbers separately from the original number. Alright, so let's look at a number with a decimal in it. So what if we had 56 and 32 hundredths? We need to break this into separate place values. So I have to look at each number individually. Let's look at the 5. The 5 represents 5 tens, so it's actually 50. Plus, now I'm moving on to my 6, and that's 6 ones. Now, I have my decimal place, but I'm just going to do a plus sign next. My first decimal place is 3 tenths. So I'm going to do 3 tenths. And I apologize for the kind of like scribbled decimal point. It's harder to do it when you're doing this with your finger. And last but not least, I have my 2 hundredths. But I must not forget that it's 0, 2 for my 2 hundredths. So I'm looking at each of these place values in this number separately. So when I get to the point of wanting to add them together, that'll be easier to look at. Alright, let's look at this in reverse. Let me start from expanded notation. So I have 400 plus 8 plus 2 hundredths. So I have 4 in my hundreds place. I have nothing in my tens place. So it's going to be 0. I do have 8 in my ones place. So I go 408. And then I have my decimal point. I have nothing in my tenths place. Big difference from tenths and tens. Make sure we enunciate correctly. So I have a 0 in the tenths place and a 2 in the hundredths place. So my number is 408 and 2 hundredths. Alright, let's look at our first set of numbers that we're going to add together. 39 plus 23. We need to be aware that when we're adding these together that we're lining them up correctly based on their place value, which is why we need to understand expanded notation. 39 is really 30 plus 9, and 23 is really 20 plus 3. So when we add, we're adding our tens place together, our 30 and our 20. So we end up adding 30 plus 20 equals 50, and then we're adding our ones place together, which becomes 50 plus 9 plus 3 is 12, and we end up with 62. Now let's look at this how you're used to seeing it. Let me move these numbers around a little bit so they stay on the screen. You're used to seeing it in many ways, 39 over 23, and you add these together. So 9 plus 3 is 12. We write our 2 here, carry our 1. 1 plus 3 plus 2 becomes 6. So that's how you do it. But what you're really doing is adding the place values separately. You're adding the ones first, and then you're adding the tens. You're moving right to left to finish off the addition. Where this becomes a little dicey and a little tricky is when you're working with decimal points. So let's look at a decimal point. 7/10 plus 29 hundredths. Okay? Where are my place values? I need to be clear about what I'm talking about. With this is 7/10, and there's my decimal point. 29 hundredths. What's my tenths place? Well, there's a 2 in the tenths place and the decimal point. So I need to be able to line these up correctly. So, for example, if I was going to do it your traditional way that you're used to, I would line them up with the decimal point on top of each other. And that's what it would look like. Now, this blank empty space above our 9, well, what does that actually mean? It actually means 0. There's nothing there, so we put a 0 as a placeholder. So 0 plus 9 is 9, 7 plus 2 is 9, and there's my decimal point, because I just go straight down, and I have 99 hundredths. Alright, so let's look at one more example. 48 and 26 hundredths plus 7 and 94 hundredths. How am I lining this up? I'm lining this up 48.26, 7 and 94 hundredths. Here we go. 6 plus 4 is 10. I've got to remember to carry that 1. 1 plus 2 is 3. Plus 9 is 3 plus 9 is 12. Just to be on the safe side, double check my math. Carry my 1. 1 plus 8 is 9. Plus 7 is 16. Carry my 1. 1 plus 4 equals 5. Bring my decimal point down. Now, Mr. Shanto is pretty particular. I wouldn't be happy unless I'm talking about money with 56.20. The real answer becomes 56 and 2 tenths. We whack off that 0 unless we're actually talking about money. Okay? All right, turn to page 33 in your math journal. You have 10 addition problems with whole numbers and decimals to work on. Cross out the part where it says use partial sums. You can use whatever addition method you're comfortable with. And use those boxes on the right to show your work. And get through as many of those 10 that you can. And if you're stuck and confused, save it for class, and we'll work on them in class tomorrow as well. But do what you do the best that you can on these questions, and then we'll follow up with you tomorrow. All right, see you in class.